Tarot's been in my life since I was 4 years old. Although I will say that I didn't really see them again until I was a teenager. That was when my relationship with tarot really began. And maybe it's the time that most people's relationship with the tarot began, not necessarily teenage stage, a lot do, but when you're in that kind of tumultuous place in life, right? And it's not always really the best start to a relationship. It's maybe a start to a intense relationship, just like if you were to start dating at a time where you were in a maybe dark or tumultuous place. And sometimes people don't do that. They wait until they're in the right place. But no, not with tarot. With tarot, what happens is you get called to it when you're kind of like in a really bad place. And the tarot is just a mirror. It just mirrors back to you like where you're at. And you're there and you're thinking, well, what's the point of that? I will tell you that a little bit later on. But at the time, I was seeing tarot as a fortune-telling predictive tool. And when you see these dark cards in your future and you're so young, you can feel really doomed, right? So I found the strength to end that relationship, toxic relationship that I had with the tarot. Yes. Toxic relationship that a lot of people have with the tarot. Yes. I would say, go as far as saying that if you're using it for predictive purposes. So let's fast forward 1920 and I became pregnant, and something in me just decided to do the tarot. And I saw in there that I was going to lose my child. What do you do with that? I put the cards back in the box. It's interesting, I never threw them away, but they went back in the cupboard and I didn't touch them again. And I remember feeling like if I didn't tell anyone that this has happened, like it was a shameful secret, then, you know, it wouldn't come to pass. And unfortunately, that wasn't true. My daughter was born with Edwards syndrome and I had 4 amazing months with her. And after that, I started telling people what happened because I had nothing left to lose. And people kept saying to me, don't do that again, Tiffany. They kept saying to me, would you read for me? Would you read for me? And, you know, I was incredibly resistant, but after being asked a good few times, you start wondering, or I started wondering anyway, what if there was something in my path that was here to help people learn to work with tarot differently. 2003, mid-20s, and I did a tarot course. For the first time in my life, I felt like I had actually met all 78 cards. They were alive all around me. It was utterly incredible. Yet, at the same time, the world had not caught up. And the only way to really attract people to work with the tarot was through fortune telling or readings. And so I began reading in my shop, which was in Denmark Hill, and some of you may know that that is South London. It's quite a intense place. There's people going through a lot of things. My very first professional reading, I really had to put in place some very strong ground rules to be able to withstand the next 3 years of doing that. So, you know, it was nothing to read for 10 people a day. And again, it was quite intense. Interestingly, it Covent Garden in London is governed by the same borough that Denmark Hill is in, St Giles, which is the patron saint of cripples, beggars, and something else I can't remember, but basically the unfortunate. And so, you know, I was reading for, well, when I was there, I was reading from everyone from the unfortunate to the very fortunate, like stars, as well as the homeless. And it was a intense place to work, and I was there for several years, and I absolutely do not regret that. It was such an amazing, incredible experience. During that time, I wrote a book, The Transformational Truth of Tarot, which had come from a manual because I'd been headhunted to teach courses. And I loved teaching. That was really where my passion was. I really felt passionate to help others connect with the tarot in the way that I had, which was not this kind of like sitting in front. Even though I did that, you know, for several years, I only really did it because there wasn't really any other way. And when teaching came into my life, I felt so fortunate. And I wrote this manual, and the manual got picked up and got published, and it won an award. And then I ended up, ironically, on TV doing readings, which was, in a way, the most exploitive. It was starting to get really intense, this kind of ironic situation that I was in. And I just could not do it anymore. I took my business onto Facebook and I started teaching how people could connect with tarot in the way that I had that experience when I was 22. And at first it was quite amazing. It was amazing all the way through, but it got harder. People usually just come to tarot for readings, and they don't understand, or they're not aware that there's so much more to it than that. I had become so passionate about getting that message out that I was doing everything I possibly could to get that message out, to the point where it sank me financially because of the amount of marketing courses. And I could then, no longer show up at all. I had to go and get a job. I had to go and be employed for the first time in my life. Can you imagine? I was now like early 40s. We're talking the turn of the 20s, 2020, you know, that COVID crazy time. And all I had on my CV was crystals, past life, astrology and tarot. But I also had marketing now because of how much I had spent on trying to get that message out there to the world. So again, irony, check the irony in that. In 2021, I gave up. I went into tarot retirement, shall we say, and I started working as a marketing officer for an NGO. And I did that for a year and a half, but I really missed the teaching still. I so missed it. And so for the last 3 years, I've been working with another NGO, creating courses and communities, which is so much more aligned with where I am. But of course, it wasn't about tarot. So why am I suddenly back here with you now? Last spring equinox, there was a plane, a toy plane, in the garden with 2 men in. Quite random. I didn't really know what to do with it. I just kind of left it there. June the 12th happened. June the 12th last year, there was the Air India crash, and one of my students was in that crash with his husband, and there was only one person that survived that crash, and it wasn't either of them. He and his husband were incredibly strong in the spiritual world. They were going from strength to utter strength with it. They were high profile. And I think if they could have chosen the way they went, I think in a way, you know, just that real kind of like going, yeah, out with a bang. And I don't mean that disrespectfully. I just trying to get across how powerful their energy and light was and still is. Thankfully, I heard the news from a mutual friend, and I didn't hear it from the media at first. It was quite powerful what happened from that moment on. Obviously, going out into the garden, seeing the plane with two men in, the dreams that were coming through, not just for me, but we were all family and friends in a WhatsApp group together. It was very clear that Fingal and Jamie were still working incredibly hard. There was a lot of synchronicities, a lot, and it was just out of this world. I did feel as if I was being nudged back into the field by Fingal, who was my student for some time before he went off and shone, and I went into tarot retirement. So it was like this, and I felt as if he was saying, right now, here you go, it's your turn again. And these nudges, they were very gentle at first, and I was still in that place of really resisting it. Obviously, you know, the end of my business had put me through the ringer, but I'm lucky enough now to not have to make a living from this anymore. So I could, if I wanted to, start again. And there was no, well, you have to do this. You have to do it as a reader because that's where people will get attracted to it. There's no, like, you have to do it to earn money. You have to do it to, there's none of that, which is so beautiful because it means I can just show up and share the core part of what I really have been wanting to do since I was 22. It was a gradual dawning of like, okay, perhaps I need to come back. And then, you know, you just wake up one day and you just know it. You just think, right, I'm just going to try it. I'm just going to do it and see what happens. And that was last month. And I decided to do a 14-day journey through the wands called Back to Life. The day after I decided to do that, I got a message from someone on Instagram. And it said, "Hi Tiffany, you don't know me, but I've come to find out about you in the weirdest way, and I'm just wondering if you still teach tarot." Like, okay, well, you've got to tell me how you came to get to know me, right? Because I'm totally curious now. And they said, well, I had a dream where Fingal told me to go and find his teacher. That doesn't surprise me. Okay, so how do you know Fingal? I never knew Fingal, but I know what happened. That's how I first became aware of Fingal and Jamie. And it really touched me. And I had this really powerful dream. And that was when it first happened, nearly a year ago now. She said it just got stronger and stronger over the year, and now she was just like, I have to make contact with you. And I was like, well, perfect timing, because I just decided yesterday I was going to start teaching again. And Back to Life happened. It happened a couple of weeks ago. And then it was like, what now? I don't just go back into tarot retirement, do I? That's it. I've come back to life. I am going to continue monthly offering journeys through the tarot, not readings. And I'm not going to be teaching people how to become readers, which I did. You know, that's how Fingal was a student of mine. It's just not where I'm at anymore. I am now in this place where I can really impart with you what I feel is the true power of the tarot. Tarot was never something I was meant to explain. It's been something that I've meant to live, and it is in all of our lives because it's the language of the archetypes. And it's only when we can get past all of this conditioning about it that we can be opened up to that world, and that world is incredibly powerful for transformation, for self-care, for relationships. I'm not a counsellor, but one of the things a lot of people say is that they've saved thousands by journeying with me. It's also great for, you know, just feeling like you're living at a different level, that you're really alive, that you're really seeing things, that you're really noticing things, the magic in your daily life, the consciousness. You know, it's like, say we have something here about putting your tarot glasses on, and it's like that's looking at life through 4D, 5D, 6D, you know, and then when you stop journeying and you take them off, you're like, oh gosh, wow. So the next journey, if you want to come on it, you don't have to be into tarot. You don't even need a tarot deck. Just if you are feeling something, listening to this, that is raw and real and calling you forward, then the next journey is happening. It's starting on Wednesday, and it's through the Pentacles. So quite often people will go, this is the predictive element, oh, Pentacles, aren't they about money? But if you look at it deeper, you will see that this is like about your values, about your self-worth, about what you hold dear. We go through these cards one at a time over the 14 days. We go and you get to live them, and they show up in your life like your neighbor, your friend, or something. You just see it. You just see it, and it has a message for you. And they're not always the ghastly messages that you might think. Like, for instance, this one looks pretty grim, right? Why would you want to experience that? But actually, journeying, this card always brings to light to me why I might be treating myself this way. And in that, you get this gift. It unlocks those pennies from heaven, which are really not necessarily pound coins, but there's something much more valuable than that. Yeah, and you get to see what that is, and you get to work with what that is. So you end up feeling like this. I'd love to see you on that journey. It's called Rebirth Your Worth, as you may get why now. It's £33. It starts on Wednesday, and you can bring a friend for free. If you can't find the link, just message me or put it in a comment, and I really hope you join us. It can just be fun. Hopefully see you on the journey. Bye for now.